Someone asks, why are people wrong about Trump? I thought this question was interesting because it said why. I'm not sure what the person means though. Um, I'm going to take it as they actually mean why, but they might not. Because a lot of people would ask this. What they would really mean is, what are the things people don't like about Trump? And they would think that the list of things people don't like about Trump tells you why people don't like Trump or why they're wrong about him. But I'm going to take it as more like, what are their motivations? What's their psychology? Like, what's actually going on there? So, the start of my answer is don't get distracted by anything about Trump. It has nothing to do with Trump. It's not about his personal characteristics. It's not about him being crass or orange or talking about grabbing women's pussies. It's not about him being a jerk. It's not about his style. It's not about his TV star history. It's not about his businesses. There's like some lawsuit against him about Trump University. It doesn't matter. No one cares about that. It's nothing to do with Trump personally. It's his politics, especially immigration. If it was someone else who was completely different, but same policies on immigration, a lot of people would be really mad and hateful and stuff. There's also just, in general, a broad movement of thinking irrationally about Republicans and hating them. There's a lot of like so-called intellectuals trying to lead the culture that way, and they have control of the schools, the universities, and the media, among other things. A lot of cultural institutions, also Hollywood. So they have like all the propaganda and the education stuff, and they're indoctrinating all the kids to have certain ideologies and ways of thinking and so on. And so that is aligning them politically against Republicans like Trump. And Trump is really moderate for a Republican on most issues that aren't immigration, like, say, healthcare or taxes and the economy and stuff. Like, he's not some hardcore fiscal conservative. He doesn't want to abolish the IRS. He doesn't want to dramatically cut taxes. He's not making government way smaller. He's making government like a little smaller. He's pretty moderate for a Republican. People are just really mad anyways. Partly because immigration and partly because he's a Republican at all, and they thought that they had sort of won the country and were going to control things forever. And then, so the deeper reasons why are they wrong about these things are to do with irrationality, to do with static memes, to do with people being passive and not thinking for themselves and being manipulated and believing what they're told to believe. And that goes back to their parents not being respectful of their minds and torturing them and being authoritarian and stuff like that. And you got years and years of basically living in an irrational dictatorship, just a tiny little one, your family, but your parents are dictators, you have no control. It's like living under a dictator in Russia, and you get punished all the time unfairly, and everything's arbitrary. And you go through years and years of that kind of hell, and it leaves huge fucking scars, and you never learn how to think rationally. You just learn how to cope with that kind of malevolent universe where reason is not effective, where you often get punished for rational thinking and good questions and catching errors of your parents, and on the other hand, often get rewarded for lying in the right ways, making the right facial expressions, using the right voice tones, sounding apologetic, and so on and so forth. So you learn like how to manipulate your parents so you get treated better. You learn how to be a social manipulator is how you cope with that stuff, not reason. I just wrote a blog post about this stuff. It is called Analyzing How Culture Manipulates You by Pulling Your Puppet Strings, and it analyzes clips from the movie How to Train Your Dragon 2. This is a very mainstream, popular movie aimed at younger people, and it is very, very heavy on social manipulation and taking advantage of people already being gullible and irrational and products of a fucked up culture. Not that it's all bad. Like there's good things about our culture, but it has like major weaknesses and problems. So the people who are wrong about Trump, like it's not like they're getting other things right. They're really bad at thinking. They're wrong about global warming. They're wrong about whether science is a popularity contest. They're wrong about whether they should trust the experts as claimed by NPR. Like they're trusting the experts on who are the experts and what the experts say. And the experts they're trusting are primarily like media figures. But also like there are expert scientists who disagree. So how do you decide which experts to trust? And they don't want to think about things like that. Anyway, so there's a lot of like not thinking for yourself and stuff, and it's taught very young. And people sure as hell don't want to question parenting practices where you do things to kids that they don't like, where you hurt them, where you act against their will, where you act without consent, where the parent gets their way even if the kid disagrees and there's no like truth seeking. The parent is just assumed to be right. So all that stuff. It makes such a broken culture, and bad thinkers who cannot figure out so many other issues, not just Trump. Like they have trouble with minimum wage. They don't understand how banning people from having jobs at certain wages makes it harder to get a job because you're limiting the supply of possible jobs that can exist. They don't understand how raising the price of something lowers the demand for it. They just don't understand like basic economics. And they stay wrong about that for their whole life, most people. Like, even a lot of Trump voters don't understand basic economics. Like, I don't think that it's just Democrats who are dumb, you know? Most people voting for Trump are wrong about a lot of the issues. They're just better on immigration, usually. They value America, whereas the Democrats are the party of disliking America and being anti-American. Anyway, what I was going to say is if people cannot see through the manipulations in 60 seconds of clips from a children's movie, and they absolutely can't, then how are they going to evaluate politics? You know, I wrote like 7,000 words of all the ways that these two little clips are manipulative and tell people what to think instead of giving reasoning, and manipulate what people think instead of giving like information that you can judge for yourself and so on. And just no one knows these things or notices them or could do that analysis themselves. So of course they can't analyze Trump, which is considerably harder than a few seconds of a popular lowbrow mainstream movie that's pretty like crude and not very subtle, because when you make movies aimed at younger people, you have to make everything more blatant because they're less used to the culture and they won't take as subtle of hints. So it's a lot easier to see through, but people still can't. So how are they going to do Trump and think about it well? So there's much broader problems. Like, it's definitely not about Trump and personally. You know, it's more of a broader cultural issue in certain political camps. But then broader than that, it's bad parenting and irrationality and no clue how to think and can't think about other issues either. So that's my answer.